know that during the closing years of the Caliphate of Uthman, nepotism and corruption had crept in terms of the appointment to public office, the appointment of governors and those who held responsibility within the Caliphate. So one of the very first things that Ali did when he took power was to replace those governors, to remove them from office and to replace them with people of honesty and integrity. Now, many of those governors came from the Umayyad clan, and so they were collectively very unhappy with the way that they were being treated. Some of them went so far as to refuse to pledge allegiance to Ali and not to accept him as the head of the community. Now, ostensibly, on the surface, they would say, we refuse to pledge allegiance until the assassin of Uthman has been captured and brought to judgment. But underlying it, of course, was the fact that they did not approve of the way in which Ali was moving from the nepotism of the earlier regime to the justice which was to be the hallmark of his time in office. Some of those who lost power and money and privilege and authority at this time went so far as to conspire together. They started to talk about what should be done about Ali as the head of the community. And then this started to concentrate around the person of Aisha. Now, Aisha, of course, was the young wife of the Prophet. She was his widow, one of his widows. But she became the focus for those who were in opposition to the caliphate, to the leadership of Imam Ali. And eventually this led to outright opposition, to armed conflict, and they prepared themselves to challenge Ali in the field of battle. And this battle was to be called the Battle of the Camel. It was called the Battle of the Camel because Aisha rode her camel into the field of battle, and she was seen going from one place to another to spur on the fighters to keep up their courage, to pursue their cause. So she was very much involved in the inspiration and in the persecution of this battle. Now, it began with the two sides going into a kind of negotiation. Both of them said that they would seek to avoid any kind of confrontation. Both of them pledged that they would not be the first to start any physical fighting. So there was to be an act of negotiation. And Ali was saying we should arbitrate this under the Book of God. We should allow the Book of God to be the arbiter of our dispute. Now, these negotiations went on for some time. Out of the blue, a group amongst the followers of Aisha, a group of those who were opposed to Ali, decided to take matters into their own hands. And they launched a nighttime attack, even though there had been an agreement that neither side would start the fighting. And so battle commenced, and it was a fierce battle. It didn't go on for a very long time, but it did leave lots of men killed, men wounded, and this was the first civil war, the first internal battle within the Muslim community, and therefore it becomes a symbol of something has gone terribly wrong within the united Muslim community. Eventually, Ali and his forces won the day, but the way that they won it is also important to consider. Aisha, we have seen, was riding her camel and going from place to place within the battle, spurring on the soldiers. And so they could see that she was the totem, that if they could stop her doing this, that would bring the battle to an end. And so the decision was made not to attack her personally, because she was the widow of the Prophet, but rather to deal with her camel, to stop it being able to carry her around the battlefield in this way. And so, first of all, one of its legs was cut, and then the second leg was cut, and then it collapsed to the ground. It could no longer move around, therefore it could not take Aisha to spur on her troops, and eventually the camel died. And that became the sign that the battle was over and it was finished. Ali and his forces had won. Aisha and those who had rebelled and tried to kill him, to take away the caliphate from him, had been defeated. Many of the ringleaders had been killed, but no harm had been done to Aisha herself. This becomes an important point because Aisha now was given full dignity and respect and honor, not because of her own being, but because that she was the widow of the Prophet. So out of respect for the Prophet, his widow was to be accorded all possible honor and dignity, even though she had just led the forces in an armed revolt against Imam Ali. And so Ali gave instructions that she was to be sent back to Mecca. She was to be escorted by a company of soldiers, but these soldiers were actually to be women, dressed as soldiers. And in this way, as soldiers, they would protect her from any attack or from any violence offered to her. But the fact that they were women was very important because it meant that her modesty, her dignity as a woman and as the widow of the Prophet were also protected. And so in this way, Aisha was escorted back to Mecca, and she lived in Mecca in peace, in privacy, not engaging in public life after that. And we see that Ali acts at all times with dignity, with nobility, respecting even the enemy. This becomes an important token of the way in which battle, warfare, fighting should be followed according to the teaching of Imam Ali. The Battle of the Camel is a great tragedy. It is the first civil war within the Muslim community. It is brought about by those who were seeking their own privilege, their own power, their own wealth, their own authority at the expense of the ordinary people. And it is prosecuted by Imam Ali as the legitimate head of the community, seeking to defend the people according to the way of God against corruption and nepotism. And it is conducted according to a spirit of nobility and of chivalry, respecting even the person of the enemy, so that their humanity, their dignity, should not be in any way destroyed.